Welcome everybody, my name is Brendan Snyder, thank you for joining me. If you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, I'm attempting to reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers, and if you could click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Alright, we're going to look today at AC/DC albums ranked from the Brian Johnson era. I decided to separate it down from Bon Scott and Brian Johnson, as I'm a bigger Brian Johnson fan and it probably wouldn't be fair to the Bon Scott era the way that I might rank them. So I decided to just look at the Brian Johnson era, and with it being 2020 and being the 40th anniversary of Brian Johnson joining AC/DC, as well as the classic album Back in Black, I thought it'd be a good time to take a look back at the album ranking of his era of the band. Now, while AC/DC formed in 1973, their first album came out 45 years ago in 1975, and they've released a total of 16 studio albums overall, 10 of those with frontman Brian Johnson, including 1980's Back in Black, which has sold over 25 million copies just in the US alone. In all, they've sold over 200 million albums worldwide. In my opinion, there are no bad AC/DC albums. They're all really quite amazing in my opinion, so of course this makes this really difficult. But coming in at number 10, we've got Blow Up Your Video from 1988. Well, at the time, this album was the best-selling since 1981's For Those About to Rock album. The album has a very dated sound to it, in my opinion. It's a bit too cleanly produced, and the songs are mixed at a very even level without a lot of punch. Other than the two singles on it, Heat Seeker and That's the Way I Want to Rock and Roll, the album isn't very memorable in my opinion. It sort of fades to the background. Ultimately, the album was certified one-time platinum. Okay, coming in at number 9, we've got Ball Breaker from 1995. This is the follow-up album to the classic 1990s The Razor's Edge. Opening track Hard as a Rock is one of the classic sounding songs in their career and a personal favorite of mine. But the other tracks seem to be a little forced, and the writing seems a little formulaic on this album, like they were trying to recreate previous success. But my real complaint comes down to the lyrical content on this album, feeling that it was not really up to par of their previous releases, and some of it downright silly. Case in point, songs like Cover You in Oil and Boogeyman. In addition, the album just doesn't flow very well in my opinion, and generally by the end of the album I'm feeling a little worn out and tired by it. Ultimately, the album was certified double platinum. Okay, coming in at number 8, we've got 2014's Rock or Bust album. This was the first album without founding member and rhythm guitarist Malcolm Young. Well, personally, I really like this album. I see this as AC/DC's version of a pop album, meaning that the songs are short, to the point, very radio friendly. They're all really catchy. However, the album itself is also really short, at only 35 minutes long. And I also find, while good, none of the songs really stand out on the album. They all just kind of blend together, meaning that there's no real peaks and valleys to this album when I listen to it. Ultimately, the album was certified gold. Okay, coming in at number 7, and I know this one will be controversial, but the album For Those About to Rock from 1981. It features, of course, the classic title track and concert closer, For Those About to Rock. This track alone makes the album worthwhile, and a really great album at that. One of the best album openers in my opinion. While the rest of the album is very strong, it never really connected with me. The tracks on it sound like leftover songs from Back in Black, and that doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that they don't have their own feel, in my opinion. Even though AC/DC plays the same sort of 3-chord rock on each of their albums, each album typically has its own feel. And this one in particular, I think, sounded like a continuation of Back in Black as opposed to something new. The album was ultimately certified 4 times platinum. Okay, coming in at number 6, Black Ice from 2008. An absolute surprise when this one was released. The album has so many classic sounding songs on it, like Opener Rock and Roll Train, Big Jack, and my personal favorite, Anything Goes. The first 7 songs on here are just amazing, downright, great slabs of rock and roll. The problem is that the rest of the album begins to drag on and falls a bit flat for me. The album is 55 minutes long, and perhaps if they had trimmed a bit of the fat off of it, it would have flowed better. Ultimately, the album is certified 2 times platinum. All right, coming in at number 5, Stiff Upper Lip from 2000. While maybe not one of their classic albums, the album is really unique sounding in my opinion. Seemingly written all around the riff, the album has just a really great groove to it. Each track on the album stands out. My only complaint has to do with the lyrical content again, some of it being a little silly. Case in point, Stiff Upper Lip and Safe in New York City. Both tremendously great songs musically, and I feel that if the lyrical content had been developed a bit more, the song itself would have really benefited from it. Ultimately, the album was certified 1-time platinum. All right, coming in at number 4, another one that may be considered a little controversial, The Razor's Edge from 1990. A real comeback album for the band after lackluster sales throughout most of the 80s, and in my opinion it was album of the year for 1990. No one could touch the band at this time. 3 monster singles off of the album: Thunderstruck, Money Talks, Are You Ready? My only complaint is the flow of the album is broken with track number 5, which is a Christmas song called Mistress for Christmas. If this song had been moved to the end of the album, like as a bonus track or something, I think the album would have been considered perfect and really could have given Back in Black a run for its money kind of a thing. Ultimately, the album was certified 5 times platinum, which of course is nothing to sneeze at, a real solid effort. Okay, coming in at number 3, we've got the top 3 left here. Again, these are going to be controversial, I know, but this is my personal review list. So number 3, Flick of the Switch, 1983. Last album to feature drummer Phil Rudd for 11 years. Despite this album not having any real hit singles off of it like the 2 previous albums did, it's a real solid rock effort start to finish. The album opens with Rising Power, which I think is one of the best album openers out there and one of my personal favorites. From start to finish, the whole album is great, including lyrical content, and the album just has really good flow from one track to the next, with all of the songs on here standing out in my opinion. The album was ultimately certified 1-time platinum. Okay, number 2, Fly on the Wall from 1985. This is my personal favorite AC/DC album, which is one of the reasons it's ranking probably higher than most people would rank it. It was the first album to feature Simon Wright on drums. Despite the album receiving mixed reviews at the time and not being considered a classic, and of course, you know, as I said, it's one of my personal favorites, which I know is going to be controversial. The album rocks from start to finish. I think it's a really solid effort all the way through. The title track, Fly on the Wall, Shake Your Foundations, and Sink the Pink, I think are all really classic sounding. And the album may stand out also due to the fact that the music from this album was used in the Stephen King movie Maximum Overdrive, and also on the soundtrack to it, as well as the AC/DC compilation Who Made Who. So, meaning that there was more opportunities to hear the music from this album than, say, from other albums. And so this one may well stand out more for me, just given the opportunity to hear its content multiple times. Okay, and coming in at number 1, I don't think this is any real surprise, Back in Black from 1980, the seminal classic album and debut from Brian Johnson, also a tribute to fallen former frontman Bon Scott. This is one of those albums that every rock fan should own. It's got 5 bona fide classics on it, but every song on this album I've actually heard on the radio at one time or another. The album is a veritable greatest hits from start to finish due to that. That being said, though, my only complaint is that I have heard everything on the radio and that there's nothing left that I would call a deep album cut. So there's no more peaks and valleys to this album when I listen to it anymore. So I do tend to play this album less than I do my favorite album, Fly on the Wall, simply because Fly on the Wall is not worn out for me. But this is, of course, a classic. It cannot be denied. And with over 50 million albums sold worldwide, how can you argue with that? All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this review of the top albums of the Brian Johnson era. Please leave me your comments. Let me know your thoughts. I'm sure you'll have alternate opinions as to what is the running order that these albums should have been in. Go ahead and leave me your running order for that as well. And I hope everyone has a great day. Take care.